Where should I start?
Well, going off that's thank you, by the way.
Yeah, dude.
But I feel like a lot of the things that I do aren't 100% planned,
Okay.
but I think that's just how life is, regardless. Sometimes you just fall into a position, or sometimes you decide, screw it, let's just try it.
Yeah.
And then out of nowhere, your life has changed. It's just that, cross the things off the bucket list, try it once. You never know. It just could be something you'd want to try once, never do it again, or completely change your life. Same thing with like when I started going to the gym a couple years ago. That was just a whim. I mean, I've been here and there. I was running for a while. I was working out at home, but never really took it serious. Never took diet serious. And then finally, I actually went to an actual gym with trainers, Hardcore Fitness in San Marcos. When I went out there, all those trainers basically boost you up, keep you going, give you that motivation. They make you want to come back.
Yeah.
And that's what I needed.
Yep.
I needed that. I guess I needed that cheerleader, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes we've got it in us to be our own fire. Other times we need the person behind us going, go, dude, you got it. Go, you got it.
And I've kept that. Like right now, I built my own fire behind it. I had to leave the gym, unfortunately, because it's just finances.
Yep.
It was expensive, but it was worth it.
Because it helped you get that. It helped give you those tools that you needed to then be able to sustain yourself.
Yes.
So it was a worthy investment.
Oh, very much.
Cool.
And that's where I'm saying that or I was getting to that fire that's built up. Now I'm just trying to keep that fire going. And also those voices that I hear, like, Pat, Sariam, Samantha, Jessica, like all of them, just killing it all the time. They were pushing me. And I hear the voices in my head every time. Just like, come on, let's go. I got 2 more reps. Yo, you got 1 more set. Don't be walking around too much. Come on, get it done.
Yep.
So I love that. So a lot of the things that push me forward, a lot of influences. And luckily they've been good influences lately.
Good. So then you're saying that the thing you're trying to do right now is keep the fire going. So what things are you using for yourself currently that's kindling, that are, big hunks of wood that you're throwing on the fire that's keeping that thing alive and keeping the momentum going for you now?
Right now, it's like I feel like I've been the Lone Ranger for a bit, so it's like it's gotten a lot harder.
Yeah.
But I just remember, I think back, I've put in so much work already. I've gone this far. Why stop now? Keep going, and you gotta keep moving. You gotta keep pushing forward. I mean, that's the best thing you can do. Regardless of where you're at. Even if it's taking you a long time, trying to see results in the gym or in education or anything like that, you just really want to just keep pushing forward. And eventually, when you do the things that suck, that you don't want to do, they actually pay off in the end because they make you stronger and better.
Yeah. Man, it's I've always, for myself, I've always had the mentality of just show up. Like if you just keep showing up, it's there's going to eventually be some sort of breakthrough. There's going to be some sort of movement. There's going to be some sort of progress if you just keep showing up. And so I love the keep moving, because I think so often, even when I show up, sometimes I show up and I'm like the meme from freaking Pulp Fiction where John Travolta walks in the room. He's like I'm here, but there's no intentionality. Like I just show up because I'm like, okay, I showed up.
Yeah.
So just so I can say I showed up, but really I don't want to be there. And so with the keeping it moving, I love that too, of like, do the things you don't like to do, like you like to do them. Eventually it's going to pay off. What's been the latest, and we can start with the latest one or the most significant one, that kind of changed trajectory, however you want to go with it. What was the thing that you kept moving that eventually broke through, that had the biggest impact to get you to where you're at right now? Was it the physical stuff on the gym side? Was it, because I know you're doing some career stuff right now. And you already started at the new place?
Yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah, 2 weeks so far.
Nice. Going good?
Oh, very well.
Awesome. So what are some of those movements that you've used to break through that have had the best impact so far for you?
Trying to break through old ways and getting out of my comfort zone. Because I find myself still to this day just getting stuck in comfort. And I'm like, I'm already here. I don't want to move. And interestingly enough, I'm still battling like certain many other comforts, like just waking up in the morning. It's like getting out of bed. And I'm like, I got to get out of that comfort. I'm like, get out. Let's enjoy the day. Because I like to be out and moving and doing my stuff. But for some reason, I'm still stuck in that comfort and that. But it's the same thing with doing anything else. It's getting out of your comfort. So in other words, what pushed me forward and got me going was being a goal oriented. And as soon as you set a goal, you have something to strive for and push for, especially if you give yourself a time limit. It's just try to keep at it. You're like, oh, I have this many days or this and that. Or it just depends. If it's just gym progress, just focus on your process, focus on your routines, get your diet going, and don't just say like, I'm going to lose this much fat, build this much muscle by this time. No. Just try it, see where you go, and see what your results are, because it's in the journey, not the destination.
Yeah. That's I like shortcuts. Man, because I had several years ago had such a shit season in my life, like massive depression, panic attacks, all kinds of stuff. I wanted to get out of that as quickly as possible, and I had been wired through just life that I want to get to the end state as quickly as possible. I have had to train myself to appreciate the journey later in life. And that's been the hard part, because when you've been trained for 30 plus years to only look at the outcome, only look at the end result, only get to the final destination, that becomes priority, not the journey. And so you end up building these, for lack of better terms, you start building these shanty houses that look good, but have no structure to them, have no sustainability to them. And at the smallest inconvenience, the littlest abruption to the facade, it starts to crumble. And then it's devastating, because you didn't put in the work. You didn't trust the process. Like the process is what gives it structure to survive shit getting thrown at it.
Yep.
So what, so are you currently in a structured routine? Or is it based on, I'm trying to accomplish XYZ, or is it the focus right now is the routine? The focus now is the regularity, the day to day, making sure I'm just do X, Y, Z on these days. It'll eventually get to the end result. So are you focused on process, or are you focused on goals right now?
Right now, process.
Okay.
I have no goals set. I got a lot of different projects going on, along with like my career, which was the big reason to jump ship, because it was just big plateau in my last job. So it's a big transformation. And interestingly, the shop that I went to now is just, my last shop was more organized.
Okay.
But I feel like the vibe and just the way things are at that shop, already 2 weeks in, I'm like, I want to be here for a bit.
Nice.
So I made the right choice moving.
That's awesome.
You don't want to just be stuck somewhere. That's the idea of like comfort. You want to get out of bed. You want to get out from that job that is really like you're not even there yet and you're already frustrated. It's just if you don't like it, move on. Do something better for yourself.
And so so your old place ended up becoming something that was actually actively trying to snuff out the fire that you're trying to sustain. Those are hard choices
Oh yeah.
because, like you said, comfort is very nice.
Yeah.
The familiar is nice.
Oh, yeah.
Like, you know, like, even though you're frustrated, you know what to expect. You know what's going to happen. The frustration, as annoying as it is, it's familiar. It's known. To leave that, to get out of that bed, you have no idea now what's going to play out. So, dude, I'm glad it ended up working out and is working out so far. So on the physical side, because I've am the past like year and a half has been riddled with injuries from jiu-jitsu, sickness, all kinds of stuff. Was diagnosed with Crohn's earlier this year, so I'm started treatment for that, and starting to see some positive results. That's why I'm all puffy from the prednisone. Dude, I've gained so much weight. I can't wait to get off prednisone, but it's working great, but it's just like, it's coming at a cost. I look like a bodybuilder right now, but not in a good way. I'm in my, what is it? Gains. I'm in the gains mode right now.
Yeah.
That's why I tell myself I'm getting gains right now.
Bulking out.
Thank you. I'm in my bulking phase. How have you seen that the physical side of things carries over into other aspects of your life? Because like you said, you were pretty active in running. You were always skating. So you're always kind of active to some extent. Life happens. We get busy. We start puffing up a little bit. We look in the mirror. We're like, I don't like that.
Yeah.
Then we start making some decisions to get ourselves back in shape. And you crushed it. Like seeing slightly puffy Carlos to jacked Carlos, I was like, dang, dude, you put in the work. And then the maintenance of that's the key is it's a lot easier to maintain it than to gain it back.
Yes.
And so you've been doing a great job maintaining it. How is the physical side carried over into other aspects of your life and that discipline? Has that had a positive net impact on you, or is it sacrificial, or what has that been for you lately?
I feel it's positive because at one point when I would get injuries a lot, especially like, my teen years and my 20s, especially when I was skating a lot more back then, and I would get injuries just like crazy,
Like knees, ankle stuff.
mostly ankle.
Yep.
I was rolling my ankles like crazy. I'm surprised I can still walk or run.
I still got one that cracks from the skateboarding days.
Yeah, I think both of mine do that sometimes. But when I would get injured, I didn't know what else to do. It just changed up. I became basically just, I guess, what's the word? Complacent, I guess. And just let it happen, let it slide, and just waited. But
when you got injured, you ended up, instead of pivoting and doing something else, you just did nothing.
I know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's exactly it. But now, like, actually going into fitness and actually going into that world, that actually changed my mindset tenfold.
Okay.
Because now I know how you can adapt to something. So if you can't do one workout, one movement because of an injury or because of a pain, you can alter it. And you can still do it. You can still do the movement. You can still do something. So I mean, if I can't run, I can still do upper body.
Right.
If I can't do upper body because my shoulders are hurt. This past year I forgot the actual technical term, but I guess it's golfer's elbow.
Okay.
So I couldn't really lift heavy. I was into calisthenics, so I couldn't do any pull-ups for months. That was killing me. That's when I got back into running.
Yep.
Now I'm not running because my foot's hurt again. So it's just, now I'm just trying to adapt. I'm like, all right, so stationary, heavy lifts. Let's go back to do that again. So back to back squats, go to deadlifts. Shoulders, my shoulders are fried again. So I'm slowly getting back up doing pull-ups again. But all right, well, I can still do push-ups. I'm starting to feel better. Let's do more push-ups.
Nice.
It's like adapt, like do something. Because don't let anything hold you back, basically, is the idea. Because if, say, like, something can't let you go, whether it be an injury, a job, or a person, adapt and do something different so you can push yourself to keep going.
Where do you think that comes from? That willingness and the desire to adapt? Because I think I know when a lot of times that I've experienced when things don't go my way, when the situation isn't what I thought it would be, when the outcome is not what it was anticipated or keeps getting further away, I tend to not want to adapt, but either throw up my hands and walk away or go distract myself with some other low-hanging fruit goal that makes me feel good, because the process is a struggle and I don't like the struggle.
Yeah.
So where do you think in you that willingness, that desire, that fight to adapt comes from?
Stubbornness. Stubbornness.
Okay.
I'll admit that.
Is it?
I've been stubborn as hell since I was a little kid, man. And it's just like, it's maybe I'm just like that little brat in me. It's like, I just don't want to stop. I want to keep going. If a doctor tells you, hey, this doctor's hurts, and he tells you don't do that, I'm like, well, I still want to do something. Still want to do that.
Is it like a fuck you, I'll show you? Is it that kind of a stubbornness, or is it a
absolutely actually, yeah.
Okay.
That's probably one of the things as well. Yeah, going back to that, I've actually grown up a lot where I don't know what it was, but a lot of people never really, I felt like they didn't think highly of me.
Okay.
They thought that, maybe I was slow, physically, mentally, wasn't strong enough. Mm-hmm. And then when I would do something, I would be accused of something like different, or like, oh, you're on something. I'm like, no, I just pulled that off. Although I don't train, so I'm going to be sore tomorrow.
Yeah. It's like, I did it. And then as soon as you get in the car, you're like, oh God.
Yeah. Of course, now I train, so now I'll be like more adept to it. But I think that's basically what it is just to prove to the people who didn't think of that I could do it in the first place, is that I can.
Yeah.
And the thing is, it's not only that, but I like to show that example to everyone else, because I'm not the only person who can do it. If I can do it, you can do it. We're all human. We're all the same bodies. We all have similar strengths. We can all push forward and achieve our goals and give a big fuck you to whoever and say, you know what, I can.
How, with the various people in your life who would kind of have the low expectations of you, did that bleed over into how you thought and felt about yourself? Like, did you start to have low expectations of yourself, or did you always have that middle finger in you that said, no, I am not what you think I am? Or was that part of the struggle of getting out of bed, was no longer being willing to agree that they were right about you? Or was that ever a part of the equation in your life?
Maybe deep down mentally, possibly.
Okay.
It could have been something like that, because, I mean, there wasn't a really time where, like, people was like, hey, you're weak. Like, no, you can't do that. You're slow. And I'm like, but I knew for my matter of fact that I could do it. And it's just, and it never really brought me down like, oh, I can't. But I catch myself sometimes, and I'm like, you know what? Oh, I should have been totally confident in what I was saying or doing at that moment in time. And I'm walking away. I'm like, well, I can't repeat that adventure this time. So I'm always relearning.
Yeah.
And trying to remind myself that, and something that I always say to myself and outwardly is you're stronger than you think you are. And with that is, just even if you do failure is okay. Because you can learn from it, you can grow from it, and you can push forward. And also, if it's just one person that you made a one failure with, or you're trying to ask somebody out, or just trying to have an opportunity with career or whatnot, that's okay. Move on forward, learn from it. This whole world is giant.
Yeah.
With billions of people. I'm like, if it doesn't work out here, you can go somewhere else.
Dude, that's funny that you said that, because last night, as I was trying to fall asleep, I had a thought that I had to write down that totally lines up with what you're saying. It was, give it a shot. No, a real give a shit about it kind of shot. What have you got to lose?
Yeah.
and it's funny because as I'm laying in bed thinking about that, I'm like, we all like to say like, oh, I gave it a shot. But I think a lot of times what we're doing is we give it just enough effort to be able to check the box to say we tried, but not so much that we're willing to go to the point of failure. Like, there's a difference between giving it a shot and failing and then really giving a shit about it and failing. Those are two different hurts.
Yeah.
Trying to be like, oh, I tried. No, whatever.
Yeah.
And then we can move on because we didn't really put in the effort. But when we actually care and give it actually everything we've got and it still results in failure, that's always been a sticky point for me. And maybe, I don't know if it's a the slap in the face of the realization that I'm not hot shit. I don't know if it's the wound to the ego. I don't know if it's my unwillingness to accept the reality, or what I had made up in my mind is this is how it's going to work out, and it doesn't work out that way. But I don't know in your life, but I had a season where it was lots of things that I had given a shit about, and really tried to do. And one after one after one after one, each one it resulted in failure. So it's like resilience is a thing. And it's one thing to have one failure, but you got other things going on that are maybe not great, but they're good. But when you have the cascade of dominoes of I'll give you an example. We were living out of state. I just lost my job. We have a baby on the way. We have the baby. We move back. I move with in-laws. I get another job. I lose that job. I get another job. I have the opportunity to be the guy. I get overlooked and someone else gets chosen. So like kicking the dick after kicking the, like, it's just one thing after another of stressors and things that are out of my control. And then being like 100 pounds overweight and like all these things kind of going like to eventually where like, I was thinking about this the other day. And Danny and I, we're hopefully are going to have a conversation soon. I'm trying to work up the courage to ask her. But we ended up having a miscarriage between Ryder and Gemma. And I remember that time was a really shitty time for us. And the only thing good was we had a baby coming, and then we lost the baby. And that was one of those major, and I didn't realize that's why it hurt so bad until maybe a couple months ago. That it was, I remember it popped in my head. I'm laying in bed. I'm talking to God. I'm like, dude, that fucking sucked. That was the only thing that was giving us hope. That was the only thing that was good. And it was ripped out from under us. But it was the thing that, kind of going back to what we had talked about previously, I think the thing that made the pain greater was I had lost my resilience because I didn't have a process in place to build resilience. Like you said, like we don't know what's coming around the corner. We don't know how our plans or goals or anything are going to work out. But we have to have the resilience. We can't have these stick houses with beautiful facades because we wanted to get to the end result without doing the work. We got to do the work.
Oh yeah.
Because it's the work that builds resilience for when those unexpected things happen. So with physical side, with what you're doing with, because I know you're still reading the that Ryan Holiday book.
I am. I'm still in the middle of it.
Cool.
Life's so busy, I haven't finished it yet. So,
Dude, it's I mean there's so many of his books have those nuggets that I have Ego is the Enemy down
saw
there.
that. Yeah.
I that book took me forever to read because I'd get to a point and I'm like, God, I had to chew on it and then I'm just for weeks chewing on this one bit, and then I'm like, okay, now I can move on.
That's how I felt with right now with The Obstacle Is the Way.
Yeah, that's such a good one.
Oh yeah.
Such a good one. And it totally plays into kind of what we're talking about. So with either on the physical side or your personal development side, whichever way we want to go with it, what are some of the things that you've set up in your habits, your day to day, those things that you're like, hey, daily, these are important to me, weekly, whatever your structure is. What are those things that you're currently using or have used in the past that have helped you build resilience, physically, mentally, like however you want to go with it? What comes to mind?
It's a good question. I feel like I haven't. It's not something that I've done. It's just something that just has built up over time. It's right now my schedule's all over the place, so it's hard to keep a solid routine.
Yeah.
So sleep is sacrificed a lot, which is interestingly enough, like that should be one of my top priorities. But
Yeah.
it's actually it's hard because I'm doing everything else except sleeping.
Yeah.
So that's the hard part. But that's another thing I'm learning in the process is like, all right, sometimes you got to let go of things. You can't just hold on to this one thing all the time. Like, sometimes some things need to be replaced, because you can't give that time and attention that you did to one thing all the time. On my animals, like right now, like I'm doing maintenance basically, but I haven't done anything where I wanted to do with like upgrades and super upkeep that I've wanted to do just because of time. So like I'm like on the edge of like, I think I might sell half my collection.
Oh, for real?
Yeah.
That's huge.
Yeah, I know. Well, I almost sold all my tarantulas
Oh yeah.
last year, but nobody bit. So I guess no pun intended.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like I just took it as a sign. Well, I guess I'm just gonna hold on to them a little bit longer then. And I ended up doing some little, just a cheap, like quick, easy upgrades, like very simple.
Yep.
And then I started thinking about it. I'm like, I was just probably overthinking it too much. And I was like, oh yeah, trenches are very simple. Like they're very simple creatures.
They don't need a whole lot of
They don't
maintenance.
need a whole lot. They don't need all this crazy stuff. There are a lot of keepers out there who do these crazy jungle vivariums and stuff like you've seen Scotty do.
Yep.
Stuff like that. But they do that for their whole collection. And they have way more animals than I do, which is insane. I'm like, where do you find the time?
Because that's a lot of upkeep.
Very much.
Yeah.
Especially having to feed them all too.
Yeah.
So it's however you play it out. Some people figure it out, or some people just, all right, this is all I do. This is the only thing that I do. Or you find balance somehow. And me, I'm still juggling and haven't found a balance 100% true yet. But I'm still trying to figure out what I need to give up. One thing I did actually give up was comic books for a bit.
Okay.
I was collecting every Wednesday all the time. And obviously that's a lot of money.
Yep.
But I got to the time where was spending more, but had no time to actually read the books that I was buying. So I'm like, I gotta stop. I mean, it's great. It's great following these books. They're great stories. But at the same time, there's just a lot of like regurgitations of the same thing.
Yeah.
And it's like, do I really need to like buy this book because of this story? Like there's too many tie-ins together. And I'm like, you know what? I gotta stop. And what I'll do is I'll just focus on collecting the collected books. The paperback trades, the omnibuses, and just collect those together. Because all I really cared for was the story.
Okay.
I was at one point being a collector. I'm like, oh, I don't have this cover. I have this book already, but not this cover of this book.
Oh, yep.
So I'll have like 3 of the same books, but just
because of the different covers. Yeah. Yep.
So I'm like, all right, I had to get out of that collector phase. It was costing me too much money, and I didn't have the time to actually read what I was actually collecting.
Right.
So now I've brought that down to a bare minimum. Now my goals are just to try to pick at my books and read those. But that was the change that I had to make. You know, sometimes things need to be replaced
Yeah.
by another, and that basically was I replaced buying so many books with giving myself time and money.
Mm.
So, and nowadays that's very important to everybody.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just what else was there?
Yeah, it's funny because it's funny because it's like it seems like there's not enough time in a day sometimes, but then other days it's like there's way too much time in a day, and sleep is always the thing for me too. Of like, oh, I'd love to go to bed at like 8:30, you know, but then like 10:30 rolls around, I'm like, oh, I gotta go to bed, you know,
Yeah.
and then it's like, oh, I gotta wake up at 6. That's not happening. Like, you know, it's like the cascade of like, it's almost like the next day is achieved by the how we live the previous day. You know?
Yeah.
Like that's what is going to help us carry the momentum of the day into the next day. And that's always been the struggle for me, is that trade-off of like there's all these things I want to do, the things I need to do, the sometimes the thing I the thing I want to do most is nothing. Like, and I'll spend a lot of time doing nothing.
Yeah.
And or distracting or trying to figure out all the various means of escaping the now. And so I'll try to do all those things, but it's the trade-off. It's oh, I've heard the quote before and I can't remember who said it. But there's no perfect solution, only trade-offs. I can't remember who said it. And I think that's true with our habits. That's true with how we build our day. That's true with the things we want to pursue. You know, when being younger, we have all the energy in the world, can get 3 hours of sleep, and still function like normal.
I miss those days.
Dude, can eat a grande combo from Taco Bell and it not affect you for a week and a half.
Yeah.
Like all the things of being young. And so we build these habits that aren't beneficial for when we start getting older. Or the habits of our youth start to catch up to us as we're older and make the older come by quicker. So what habits, so you know, you've had to kind of make the trade-off of you can't give the spiders, the snakes, the other animals the attention that you'd like to, but you kind of had to come to the realization that, you know what, they're fine. You don't need to necessarily feel guilty about that, because that guilt will tend to lead to drastic, maybe not drastic decisions that maybe you end up regretting, like selling all your tarantulas.
Yeah.
I'm sure you look back now like, oh, I'm kind of glad I didn't.
Yeah. I am.
And so what other things have you been looking at for yourself that have been, okay, you know what, I have to choose between this thing now or the desired outcome however far from now? Have there been any other things that have been notable recently or in the past that you're like, you know what, this current feel good is not going to help me get to this thing over here that I actually really want. So the thing I quote unquote want right now is not the best thing for me. It's not actually what I need. And I need to change my wants so I can get what I need. What have been some of the shifts for you, figuring out your differences of like your wants versus needs? And how did that process work out for you? Like, how were you able to get through the bullshit, to get through the distraction of what you want, to figure out what it is that you really, really need?
I guess that's back to that stubborn will. You know, it's just, you know, sometimes like I got to like really just sit myself down theoretically and just say, hey, you need to get this done. Get it done. Just do it. There's really nothing stopping you. You're overthinking it, and just work on it. I'm trying to let's see.
Because here's where I'll help steer us a little bit.
Okay.
I know that you're a very introspective dude, very introspective. I know that the from the outside looking in, a lot of people wouldn't recognize that in you. And you don't have that aura of being an introspective dude. And it's not that's not a bad thing or anything like that. But I know, just based on the conversations that we've had throughout the years, you are able to really get deep into yourself. Sometimes assisted,
Yeah.
sometimes not. But you have that willingness to explore and go spelunking into self, which is not a common thing. So in those moments that you've had, in introspective modes, in mind or soul spelunking, and all the various methodologies used to do that, what things have come out of those experiences that have rattled who you thought you were, or have reinforced your knowing of who you are?
I think it's rattled and reinforced, to be
Okay.
honest.
Like simultaneously at separate times, or
Probably
in a way?
separate times.
Okay.
I actually had a friend call me out on it one time, and he said, like, you're always locked in your head. And like, he feels like, but the thing is like, you're in a darkness. You're always locked in your head in a darkness, but you like it there. But then he said, it's going to be hard for you to get out of it. But if you can't, I highly recommend you do. But if you can't, discipline it. And those are,
Dude,
that was great,
yeah.
great words to hear.
Yeah.
And it made sense 100%.
Yep.
And I think since then, I think it's just changed. And like, so don't get me wrong, I try to peek my head out of the box every once in a while,
Like,
see some light.
What's this light and fresh air about?
Yeah. And that's like, that goes back into like being in your comfort zone, I guess.
Okay.
But I guess if you're locked in your comfort zone, you're locked in your head, try to discipline it, try to make it work where you can actually, I guess, be a societal member in this world.
Yep.
So you're not a total outcast.
Yeah.
But that's one thing that actually that's what you're saying right now. That's that my friend telling me that.
Yeah.
Give me that information. It's like, okay, that makes sense. But doing that inner work was hard because I didn't know I needed to do it. And it wasn't until I started heavily doing mushrooms in 2020 when I started thinking hard into like different thoughts. And most of the time it's like after a mushroom trip, it's not just that trip alone too. Like it's the days after as well. It's the reprogramming that your brain is doing in the process. And that also just helped me grow and learn. But it was a long process.
Was it?
Like, I feel like the person I was back in 2020, I feel like I'm completely not even close to that person.
Outside looking in, I would 100% agree. Yeah.
Thanks. I 100% believe that I've made a lot of changes in my life, that my whole mindset is just completely different. And
can I say, along with that, is you have, I know you find comfort and solace in the darkness, but what I can say is that since 2020, because I think that's roughly when we moved in, was 2020, you have a light now. How bright it is, I don't know. That's not a call that I can make. But what I can tell you,
call it a dull street light.
Yeah. Hey, dude, a light's a light.
Yeah.
But I can 100% affirm in you that there is a little bit of light in your darkness now, and that's because of the work that you've done. And so Yeah, find the solace and comfort in the darkness, discipline it, make it work for you, but also understand that the work that you've done, there's a little bit of a light in there. And it shows with how you carry yourself, the confidence in which you speak. I've noticed that as well as something as silly and simple as like the confidence in which you speak. That's because there's a no longer a hiding in the darkness. There's the disciplining of it. There's the making it work for you. Finding light in the darkness. Like that work has shown on the outside to a guy who's not living in your head. I can see that the work is having a positive impact on your life. You being willing to take the risk, believing in yourself, to leave the comfort of a job that you know will be there, and taking the past, year and a half, 2 years, you've taken lots of career risks because you believe in yourself. 5 years ago, would you have had that confidence in yourself to take those risks?
No.
You're doing the work, dude.
Yeah.
Like there's a light in there, and that's awesome.
I appreciate it.
What were some of the intentions that you used on those trips that had the biggest shift in your mind? Or because I know sometimes you can go in with an intention and it's like, nope, we're not doing that. We're doing this instead. And you're like, but I want to do that. And if you fight that, that is not a fun time.
Yep.
And so what has been, for me, the first time I did mushrooms, I went in blind. I was like, I have no idea what to expect. I'm going to trust the divine that he's going to control this. And control was the thing that I was forced to deal with. That control is an illusion. And that I really don't have like the things that I fear, I end up bringing into being because I'm trying to control them not happening. And that was the thing that was like, what? And so and it was like 4 grams my first time. So that was
nice.
Yeah. So that was an experience. But what were some of the intentions that paid off for you, or some of the things that the mushrooms were like, I don't care about your intentions. We're doing this work instead. Are there any ones that kind of stand out to you of like, oh man, this totally changed the trajectory of how I thought about myself or this situation or this intention I went into with? What comes to mind?
Well, when I went into mushrooms on a trip, I never had any intentions.
Okay.
Every time I just went in and got in the passenger seat and just let them drive. Because honestly, that's the best way to do them. It's the best way where you can actually learn from yourself. Because you're either just giggling, laughing, or all of a sudden you're going way in depth into yourself and just thinking. I had one moment where it was a very odd experience. So I was listening to music, but all I could hear was the rhythm, couldn't hear the words. But I had friends I was doing mushrooms with, and they were right next to me, 6 feet away. They were talking. But all I could hear was the rhythm of the music, and I was looking off into the distance, and I was remembering, oddly enough, for some reason, it was a time, it was with an old friend, and I remembered every argument that we had, and I was basically out of body experience, like seeing them. The thing is, though, I don't remember these arguments because I know that they happened, though, or the things that were wildly said, because I remember the aftermath or the before. I remember being there that night when that happened, and I remember blacking out because I was drunk.
Right.
And I don't remember what was actually said. But then in that mushroom experience, I remembered every single thing that was said.
Wow.
And every argument that we had, and it was very toxic. It was just, it was very, very strange. But it was a realization that, okay, maybe this person that was super hard crushing on, maybe wasn't the best fit. You know, maybe it made sense. I kept questioning it, and I'm like, maybe I'm in another time, another timeline. Maybe I did something. I was thinking about the butterfly effect.
Yep.
Like maybe I went back in time and changed things, and
Yep.
this is why I remember it all. I'm like,
Right.
no. It's just that might have been just mostly just just the stress and worry and like, well, what if like this and that, but in reality, it didn't happen. What happened was we had our arguments. Things weren't working out. Nothing really aligned with us, and with that maybe deeply, maybe I didn't actually take it from it in words in my head, but maybe just in emotion and experience, just like, all right, well, you can't control everything. You can't lead everything, and you can't just be like, all right, well, what if, like, let's try to go back. Let's hold on to the past. I'm like, no. It's like, just move forward. It didn't work out. Keep going, and just keep going with your processes, and just keep living. I'm like, why hold on to the past? Just keep moving forward, and go on to the next thing. And you never know what's going to happen.
Right.
It's that kind of goes into too with the hook suspension. My friend Spada, they were telling me that like they really admired how I would go into it confidently, like you're always just ready, this and that. And I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna tell you a little secret. I'm not confident in it. I'm not ready. I'm just there to show up because you don't ever know what life's gonna take you. You could go in plan to have this experience, but if you go in like that, just like a mushroom trip, it's gonna go how it's gonna go.
Right. And there's so many good things here. So that one trip basically confronted you with the reality of the situation and basically made you choose.
Oh yes.
Are you going to accept reality and move on? Or are you going to keep holding to some false idea that you think is real that is not?
Exactly.
That's a hard one.
Oh yeah.
That's a hard one. Is that the only time that or situation that's happened, or has that been a common theme on those journeys of accepting reality, moving on from what you think is real, and then move into what is real? Or was that like a one-time experience in that regard?
I want to say I've had a couple other experiences too, where 100% it's basically letting go of and going into reality. Try to stay in reality as much as possible. Like I love mushroom trips, but I like to be here.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like to travel, but I like to come back home.
Yes.
And it kind of goes back to another mushroom trip experience where basically, it might have been a similar night. It was two friends. We're hanging out, and they were in the living room, and I was in the kitchen, and I was about to go up. I was going to end my night, and I'm trying to find my phone, and I was tripping just so hard that I was only looking in that general area and not looking anywhere else. And for some reason, I thought if I go ask my friends where my phone is at, it'll be chaos. Something as simple as that.
Yeah.
And just asking for help, which is interesting.
Yeah.
And finally I went and I looked at him like, he looked at me, saw the look in my eyes. He's like, oh, are you okay? Like, what's up? And I'm like, have you seen my phone?
He's like, seriously? This is why?
Yeah. And my other friend was on the couch. He's like, oh, is it here? I'm like, oh, yes.
Oh my gosh.
I've been looking for it for like 20 minutes. They didn't realize I was there like in the kitchen looking
That's
around
so
the whole
funny.
time because they were having their own trip.
Yeah.
But also it's another thing that like you kind of learn is like it's okay to ask for help. That's another thing that I took from it as well.
Yeah.
That's the reality as well. It's like you go back to your reality, like you're not there by yourself. Sometimes it's okay, like, hey, can you help me with this?
Is that a hard thing, or has that been? Is it still a hard thing for you to do, is to ask for help?
Oh yes, like I said, I'm stubborn as a dog. Well, stubborn as a donkey, actually.
Yeah.
And it's. I feel like I can always just handle it myself. I'll just take care of it. It probably goes back to like, because my mom was a single mom.
Yep.
Most of the years, So she would always like, oh, I'll just do it. I'll take care of it. So I think I might have just took that from her. And also my two sisters are very similar.
Very independent.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the Medina way.
Is that I mean, obviously it's going to be independence due to the nature of what it is. But do you think that your mom and sisters like the independence, or is that just how they had to adapt to survive?
I think adaptation.
Yeah.
It's, I mean, it probably just runs in the family, but we always just figured it out. We always just put things together. If we had to suffer, we suffered, but we did it. We handled it and got through. I mean, my mom worked about two jobs for a while just to like raise us up. And then when she had me, that was a whole different thing. And same thing with my two sisters. They're always like, you know, two jobs or career oriented. They're getting their work done. It's like we're noticed that, you know, we've actually brought that up to light too in family conversations that we're all just very work oriented. We're hard workers. We're shitty with being on time.
But when you're there,
Yeah, but we're there. We kick ass.
And so do you think that because I think you said at the beginning, kind of this lone wolfness thing that you got going on, that you'll handle it, you've got it. Has that ever been detrimental to you, of having that, of it being difficult to ask for help, or you looking at situations or your life like, is it like, I've got this and I'll do it alone, or is it more of I am alone and I'll figure it out?
I think I've put myself alone and then saying I'll figure it out.
Okay, interesting.
Because I'm always reminded that I'm not alone.
Okay.
And it's a good feeling. But it's just that stubborn mule in me just trying to like, hey, just you got this. Like, you're a man. Figure it out. Do it. You know?
Yeah.
And it's just, and that's just that stubborn mule in me. Just I can't help it. And I'm trying to think. It's like, if I can handle that, then I can do anything. And which is actually very, I guess, kind of bad a little bit, because like, all right, now you're just training yourself to be by yourself all the time, being lonely. And I always have to remind myself, I'm like, hey, you can ask for help. You got to reach out every once in a while. It's okay. It's just, I feel better that I don't owe anybody, which is weird.
Okay.
I don't know why. Because, like, I'm a giver. I'll help out anybody. Like, oh, you ask for help? Yeah, sure. I got you. No problem.
Yep.
But for some reason, I'm like, it's like, I don't want them to owe me either. I'm just like, I'm just doing this out of kindness in my own heart. But at the same time, I'm just like, for some reason, it's like I don't return that favor to myself. You know? It's very odd. And it's just that adaptation, I guess, that we've grown up very solitary. Like, we're a very tight-knit family, but we all grown up like doing our own thing, figuring out ourselves by ourselves. You know, every once in a while, like, yeah, we'll ask each other for some help here and there. If we can offer it, we will. But it's just, but that's just, I guess maybe it's just the Medina way. Like, we've always just been these very stubborn mules, especially my mom. And we just go our own way, and we're just like, I'll figure it out myself. Like, I'll just do it. You know.
Your what's your mom's name?
Alicia.
Alicia. Has she was she alone by choice or circumstance?
It's a good question. It might be circumstance, to be honest.
We don't have to get into that story, that side of the story, if you don't want to. I'm just curious, because it helps me have a better understanding and foundation for you. So we can go there. We don't have to go there. I'm just curious.
I'm not sure of the full story. My two sisters, I'm a half sisters, so
Okay.
they have another father.
Okay.
And then later on in the years, my mom met my biological father, and he was a Vietnam vet, passed away in 2008, and but I cut contact with him back in the 5th grade.
Okay.
But he was basically a drunk wife beater, so things got bad.
Yeah. Pretty common for that era. My dad was a Vietnam vet too. Not that extreme, but definitely lots of alcohol to distract from the shit they lived. Very common. So sorry, I'm really sorry to hear that. But so I get the feelings and emotions that come up from having a man from that era who experienced that stuff, because that shit doesn't stay with them. That shit somehow rolls downhill
Yeah.
and then lands on us.
Yeah.
And so it's a very real thing. And I'm tracking with you. I totally get it. I understand that as soon as you say my biological dad was a Vietnam vet, I know exactly what you're talking about, exactly what you lived, exactly what your childhood was like, because I lived the same thing. Not to the severity,
Yeah.
but all the feelings, the insecurities, was your biological dad in the picture at the beginning before he died, or was he not around?
It was kind of odd. He wasn't around the very, very beginning, like my early years.
Okay.
And it wasn't until later he started showing up and then started being a part of life. But he was a fucking asshole, man.
Yeah.
Like, I felt like he just didn't know how to talk to a kid. You know? Wake me up. It's like, get up, soldier, wake up.
Oh, God.
This and that.
So that dude is full on stuck in the 60s still.
He was. Well, like, the thing is like, I think it was just something like just brought him back out of nowhere. And, you know, that stubbornness probably just transcended from that as well, where he just kind of held on to that. And I feel like he had a lot of rage in him too,
Yeah.
obviously. But
It sucks because that rage that they have in themselves, for themselves, gets externalized to us. And then we're the problem. What did I do wrong?
yeah,
And I understand the lone wolfness, because the only thing I wanted, I remember this distinctly, that not too long ago, a core memory was unlocked where I remember the need and want I had it as a little kid, as a little boy with my dad, that all I wanted to do was to be near him. That's all I wanted. My dad at the time had no idea how to be near. My dad at that time was present but absent. He was there, but he wasn't there. I grew up with a dad who was mentally still in the 60s in the jungles of Vietnam, looking out for Charlie. like full on classic Cartman, like look out for Charlie up in the trees type thing. And so he had no idea how to be near. And so my experience with Vietnam vet dad was short-tempered, distract with TV and alcohol. He didn't want to include me in normal day-to-day stuff. Like, I have to, he's doing yard work. And granted, as a kid, we're gonna bitch and complain about doing yard work, but
yeah,
in reality, I think that there's this longing to join dad in the work. He had no idea how to invite me into that. Like, there's so much shit that transfers from them to us in that whole situation because they feel like a piece of shit. That dictates how they react to the world around them. And unfortunately, we are a part of that world that's around them. And because we're young, because we're innocent, because we have needs and we don't know how to express them. It's really hard to not allow our dad's inability to be present to not affect us. And so because I'm not included, because I'm not invited, I'll do it by myself. Fuck it, I'll figure it out. So much of the things I learned early on, I had to learn by myself, which reinforced this. I got this. I'll figure it out. I'm not going to ask for help. I'm not going to be vulnerable. I'm not going to show that I need, because every time I showed that I needed, it went ignored, because my dad had no idea how to listen for an invitation. He was always a great man, but he was an absent man. And luckily we never had abuse in our family. I think it could have very easily gone that route. It's all too common with dads from our era.
Oh, yeah.
That Vietnam era, man, it was, those dudes have some hard shit.
Oh, yeah.
And unfortunately, it trickles down to us, and then it's created an entire generation of lone wolves who are incapable of asking for help, and would rather sit by ourselves and wallow in our failure, than to say, "Hey guys, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. Can someone please throw me a life preserver real quick?" So, dude, I totally am tracking with you, because the same. And so when is that, aside from, because I mean, the severe alcoholism, it's one thing like having drinks. It's another thing being around an alcoholic. Like, especially when the alcoholic is prone to anger, externalized rage, and the people around them become the target of it, or not even necessarily the target. Because I don't know this situation, but sometimes it's you're just caught in the fallout of the implosion. And that doesn't lend itself to be for a feeling of safety. That increases, all right, what dad am I going to get today? And so did that make it hard to, did that make it really hard to trust your dad, other authority figures around you? Is that what kind of gives you that whole, like, that stubbornness is
Possibly.
Yeah.
Because I knew when I got my current stepdad, Ralph. It took me a while to actually warm up to him, especially during high school, because he came into like our lives when I just got out of junior high.
Okay. Is this your sister's dad?
No.
Okay.
No. This is both of our fathers have passed away.
Okay.
And so right now this is just our stepdad. He had his own family. He had his own split, and then him and my mom met at a bar one night.
Nice.
Yeah. Story goes is apparently he got stood up, and then he ended up talking to my mom, and
No way.
went from there.
That's awesome.
But it took me a while to warm up to him, though.
Yeah.
Especially as a teenager. I was just like...
Yeah, you're filled with all that teenage angst and hormones and the anger. And
Oh, yeah. And for like years, like, it was basically just my mom. And it got to the point where, like, she was my dad, you know? And so she was doing the yard work. And she never really asked me for help or anything like that. It's just, she just did it. Which I kind of wish she would have pushed it on me too, like put some work, get a job. Like she didn't even want me to get a paper route.
Really?
Like I wanted to get one in high school, which is actually very old to get a paper route apparently. But I tried to get one like at 16. And for some reason she made a big deal about it. She's like, "Oh, I don't want you to like work and then not go to school." And I'm like, but I'm thinking about it now. I'm like, I could have just worked and learned a trade and then like made a bunch of money from that, and not going to school.
Yep.
But I see where she was trying to go with that.
She's trying to
But
help steer you into a place that would give you options.
yeah,
Yeah.
but the only thing is it was the same mindset though. It's just like I'll do it on my own. I'll figure it out. You know, like I got it. I can do it. And I think that just transcended to me as well too, and to my sisters. Yeah, my mom was a workhorse. The whole family is. So that's one thing that probably just pushed us just to keep going and give us our stubbornness. But yeah, where was I going with that? Sorry.
No, no, it's hard because when the stubbornness becomes a mode of survival and not a this is what I like to do or this is how I am. But instead of like I'm forced to do this because I don't have another option, that's really hard to then let go of it. The way I try to describe it is obviously there's nature, there's nurture, there's also choice, that are in the equation. But when we're forced to accept a identity or a modality that is counter to what we really feel is who we are, you live in that long enough, it becomes who you are.
Yeah.
And then it becomes hard to detach yourself from that.
Oh, very much.
And so obviously with with all the plant medicines and stuff, it kind of helps expose and shine a light on like, hey, this might not be who you are. This is how you're operating.
Oh, yeah.
This is the operating system that you've had to adopt in order to survive and to make it to this point. And have you, in those moments where the light gets shined on that, have you been able to detach yourself from that operating system for even a short time or a longer time of that survival lone wolf operating system? Like, have you been able to detach yourself in any extent from that operating system, or is it something that you might feel like is so ingrained it's just now who you are?
I feel like I've tried to venture out from it.
Okay. That's when you kind of like poke your head out of the box,
Yeah,
get some fresh air
yeah.
and stuff.
It's just I'm still have my tethers.
Yep.
They're still tied to it. It's hard to pull from that, especially
Yeah.
since like you've lived that life for so long. And
And when it's not only time, but it's also the various traumas
yeah,
solidify it. So it's you're getting hit from both sides, like,
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
yeah, and a lot of the time, the past like, well, most of my life, to be honest, it was just I was always hiding back into that box. If something ever happened and I didn't know what to do, I tried to dodge conflict as much as I can. I still do it too, but every once in a
Yeah.
while, I'm like, all right, you got to have some conflict to grow.
Yeah.
To actually.
Well, and
move
it's
forward.
hard because I'm making an assumption here. We never saw healthy conflict.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
Conflict was always there. There's never a level 2, level 3 conflict. Is either no conflict or World War III.
Yeah.
Is that true for you too?
Oh yeah.
So little conflicts create this bubbly anxiety in me the same way as massive problems. Like, there is no difference in my body. In my mind, yes, there's a difference. But my body responds the same way, whether it's a minor inconvenience or my kid will break his arm. Like, I get stuck at a red light or my kid goes missing at the beach. It's the same. It's the same bodily reaction because we never saw a healthy conflict.
Yeah.
So I totally get that.
No, that I agree on.
Yeah. So has that played a role in not being able to see healthy conflict, not being able to see how to argue appropriately? Has that had a toll on friendships, relationships of like, or have you been able to kind of navigate that and not become the thing that you witnessed when you were younger?
I want to say I've been able to navigate it with friendships, But relationships, for some reason, it's like a different story. I don't know why. It's like I always want to treat a relationship as a friendship because it's ultimately that's what it is in the end. Just a deeper friendship. But for some reason, it's like you put it on a pedestal, like, oh, it's something crazy. You have to act a certain way. And then all of a sudden, I'm like, oh, I'm not even being myself right now. And that's when, okay, that's when you're avoiding conflict. You're not having the conversations. And when you would with your friends, but for some reason, and like relationship wise, it's like, well, what's the difference here?
Yeah, I'm curious what you think the thing is there. Is it a fear thing? Is it a fear of missing out, or is it a a view of your own worth that this is better than what you deserve or need, or is it like where is it kind of falling that it makes it difficult for you to have those conversations, to be yourself in that elevated relationship versus a friendship? Where have you gotten into that? Has that been exposed to you or
Briefly, I think it goes back to like, past traumas where I've not found the worth, where people have told me like, so and so, like
you can't do this,
you
you're
can't
not,
do
yeah.
that, and I'm like, all right, well maybe I can't get that person, can't get that girl, it's
She's too good for me.
exactly.
Yeah. Has that always been like a common thing of like they're too good for me?
Maybe it's like like I'm not deserving maybe, which is odd. I'm like, if it was just a friend, I well deserved a friendship.
Yeah.
But for some reason, I put this relationship, partnership on a pedestal, and it's like, oh, it's just this huge thing. I'm like, oh, now I got this little bubble, this gut, and I'm like, nah, I have to be a certain way. I have to win.
Yeah.
And that's when for some reason that's the only time I fear failure. That's really weird.
You're so afraid of fucking it up.
Yeah. It's an odd experience. So that's my next step is to try to break through that.
Try to find you a lady friend.
Yes. But it's just, I mean, you're always growing, you're always learning about yourself. But I find it very interesting that I'm 39 years old and I'm barely at that point right now. I'm barely like coming into terms. I'm like who I really am, who I have the potential to be. And I love it. I love where I'm going now. But I really wish I was doing that like when I was 20s.
Right.
Because I can only imagine where I'd be now. Not that I'm not anywhere good right now, but still.
Yeah, I've had those thoughts too. Of like, man, like why did it take till I was almost 40 to start doing this work?
Yeah.
But something that my friend has told me is, maybe it's Carl Jung or someone else said that life actually begins at 40.
Interesting.
That's when life actually starts, because you get through all the life experiences that set you up to either succeed or fail. You get riddled with bullshit. And it's around 40 where most for men, where work actually starts. And for a lot of men, life actually starts at 40, because there's that clear growth from that we kind of start to, and this is, I think, probably a generational thing for our generation, is we start moving from that man-child adolescence into who we're really wired to be, because we kind of then either get to the point through either desperation or willpower that we want to know who we are. And again, it could be either through desperation, circumstance. I have to figure my shit out because like my life is a mess, like whatever it might be. But it's usually around 40 where that starts to happen, because I have felt the guilt and the frustration of like, oh, why couldn't I have done this work at 25?
Yeah.
Like I'd probably own a house by now. Like, like I start like spiraling. And I got to remind myself that it was all the past experience has led to this point for a very specific reason. I don't have to understand it. Because kind of going back to the thing that the plant medicine tried to unravel for me is I don't have to control it. I don't have to guide it. I have to acknowledge it. I have to observe it. I have to move with it. One of the conversations me and a buddy were having recently was about grief, and the thing that is really hard for us, our generation, us as men, to do is to move with the things that are happening around us. We like to be a wall.
Yeah.
We like to be, or we like to be the door kicker. You know, like we like to either be the shield or the aggressor. We don't like to dance with the shit that's going on around us. We like to either fight against it or protect others from it. And so it's really unnatural for us to be able and willing to move with the things and let the things around us lead the dance. Because there's been times that when we did not have the ability to control, that those things didn't play out how we wanted, or they resulted in traumas or whatever else because we didn't have the control. So now we got to control it.
Yeah.
We got to protect ourselves. You got to make sure, no, I'm not going to end up in that situation again. I'm not going to get my heart broken again. I'm not going to be vulnerable again and get made fun of for it. I'm not going to express the need I've got and it be ignored again. So I'm going to shut the lid on the box. Everyone leave me the fuck alone.
Yeah.
I'll handle it. And then we come out all white and pasty because we've been in the box too long.
Yep.
And so it's, you know, I'm glad that you're getting sun.
Here and there.
Yeah. Here and there, you got pop up and get some of that UV light.
Yeah.
Sorry, I kind of derailed this a little bit, so I apologize, but
You're okay.
can we circle back to, the suspension thing?
Sure.
Okay. Cause this has always fascinated me about you with your suspension stuff. The experience of suspension. How many years have you been doing it?
It's been 5 years now.
Okay. What led up to your, like, was it something that you always looked at, was like, oh, that's really interesting or cool? Or is it like, shortly before you tried it, what led you to having interest in it? And then you being like, hook me up. What led to that first experience?
It's about, what was it, 2018, 2019? Yeah, it was 2019 was, I believe, when I started. It was, I believe it was September 2019. Jump back to July 4th. Jump back even before that, just real quick. Aaron Sloan, he was known in the reptile community, he still is, as just very popular, known dude. Solid guy, too. Really good guy to have behind you, on your side especially. He started posting like on Facebook like recently, like at the time. He's like, oh, like he's doing this hook suspensions. Okay. Apparently he'd been doing it for years, but he wasn't public about it.
Okay.
He started posting. I'm like, oh shit, like, it's pretty gnarly, dude. Like, hell yeah. Like, I just, not really supportive of it, but like, hey, like that's pretty gnarly. Like, you know, good for you.
Yep.
You know? And then I was having a time where I was like, I wanted to have a bucket list thing. I'm like, I want to start doing stuff. I'm like, I just want to try it once. So we all met up at a friend's like July 4th party, and he was there. And I'm like, hey, I just wanted to talk to you. Like, I saw that you're doing the hook suspension and stuff like that. He's like, yeah, like, I think I want to try it once. And he was like, really? I'm like, yeah. And he's like, all right, sure. Like, just give me some time. Like, we'll try to set up a meet, and then I'll let you know. And I'm like, all right, cool. Then a couple months later, he hit me up, and Lily went into it with, he gave me all the precautions, like basically be hydrated, no alcohol the night before, especially the night before, if not more than that. Have a large meal beforehand, so you have your proteins and your carbohydrates in you, and be hydrated the whole time that you're there. and just come with an open mind. And I went in just basically not even knowing how the process was done or what. I just went in like I just dove in. Like, let's go.
Yep.
And long story short, pun intended, I got hooked.
Yep. What was the first configuration for your first one?
So it was 2 hooks in the back.
Okay.
In the upper back.
Okay.
2 Gilson hooks. They're like they're triangles, so they're a
Okay.
closed hook.
Okay.
So you can have some fun. You can flail around and spin around if you want to. Those are really solid. The first experience was different because obviously it's something, and I always explain it to anybody who's never suspended before. It's a sensation and an experience that you have never ever felt in your life. Nothing similar to it.
And can imagine that's a little hard to describe as well.
Oh,
It's one
very
of those
much.
things that like you have to experience
Yes.
it. Like no amount of description will
Yes.
will suffice. But what about the? Is it like a euphoric experience? Is it pain that then transitions into euphoria? Is it like an out of body experience? Is it like where would it relate in like cannabis, mushroom trip, like? Where did it kind of range in all the different experiences we can have as humans? What's as close as you can get to for someone who's never suspended? Probably never will, because it freaks me out. Like it's dope to watch and to see, but I'm like, dude, that scares the bejesus out of me. I don't even look when they give me an IV. So what would you be able to kind of relate it to that would help it be tangible?
Well, what's funny is I used to be afraid of needles.
Not anymore.
Yeah. Interestingly, I could do a tattoo gun. That was no problem. But
Yeah.
like when there was like
Oh yeah.
taking blood and like that, for some reason I had to look away.
Yep. Same way.
But now I'm like, I've actually pierced myself before. Like
No way.
Yeah. And but to answer your question, it's very much it goes from pain to euphoria.
Okay.
So and I guess going back into it, it's like, if you really think about it, it's the inner work of trying to do something that sucks and then becomes better in the long run. And with hook suspension, it's that experience that you're bringing to that euphoria of like, I'm here and I'm free and this feels amazing. And it's pain, but eventually your body adapts to it. And it's like, actually, we're okay. Even though it does fight it.
Right.
At the very beginning, it was like, no, what the hell is this? Like, stop. But once you actually get past that wall and cross that.
Yeah. It's almost like your body accepts this is what it is.
Yeah. And it gives you such emotion and deep feeling that, I mean, a lot of the time, many times, like people will start bawling, crying. Because a lot of the times it's what it is. It's basically a release. It's a ritual, really is what it is. I mean, if you go back, it was originally in tribes that they did it for the coming of age for men.
Okay.
And they did it very barbaric, though. They did it with bones.
I can imagine. Yeah.
Yeah, it was just gnarly.
Not too much sanitation back then.
No. And they probably hooked, muscle, which must have been really painful.
Yeah.
But now it's like it's a lot more professional, a lot more thought out, very sanitary.
Surgical even.
Oh,
Like,
very much.
Yeah.
Yeah, everything is surgical grade.
Yeah.
So it's only through the skin, and that's it. Nothing in the muscle. It's you're pinched, all your skin is pulled up and then pierced through.
Okay.
But that feeling is just something different. And once you've actually done it once, now you look forward to that pierce. You look forward to that pull because you know where you're going to go. You're going to enjoy that experience. And it's very much like a trip because you're either flying up in there, depending on the position you're in.
Right.
I've done some easy ones, and I've done some difficult ones.
Right.
And the difficult ones really, really bring it out of you. And I like to incorporate that into life too, because you grow from it. You go through something difficult, you go through what sucks, and then you made it. And I think with hook suspension, I mean, if you could do that, you can do anything.
It's like that process accelerated. It's like, yeah.
And it goes, and it depends on how you want to do it as a ritual, because it is your experience, it is your journey. So if you want to go up with a certain type of music, if you want to go up in a certain type of position, we try to offer that and get that done for you. and we give you that experience. But most of the time, it's like you could be as simple as just hanging from a tree in public and just some music playing, and then you'll go off in your own trip and your own process. Sometimes it doesn't have to be a huge presentation
Right.
with all these, different lines and hooks. I mean, it's all beautiful and amazing. And don't get me wrong, I'd like to try one of those one of these days.
Right.
But sometimes just being in your own element and going up, and sometimes I'll suspend, and I'm like, I feel like I was surrounded by probably 15 people, and it's like they weren't even there. Going back to my suspension when I did the Lotus, for my 4-year anniversary.
Yeah, I remember you showing
2023.
Yep.
So that one was very intense. They cut that one short because sometimes what happens, especially in your legs are very vascular. So I was bleeding a lot from one leg. Not badly. It wasn't very an emergency or nothing. It was just going off. They were being very precautious, which is I'm very, very appreciative for Aaron and Neil. Neil was there too. But that one was very different for me. That one actually went somewhere else for
Really?
the first time.
Okay.
Especially I like going with rhythm. I really like concentrating on rhythm and meditating to it.
Okay.
And so I had a specific song in mind, and I had that song playing, and I felt like I was just traveling out of body somewhere else. I could hear people talking, but I felt like I wasn't really there.
Yep.
And that was the first time when they put me, they set me back on the table. Sorry. I didn't want to go back to reality. I actually started crying. For the first time. It was weird. It was strange. I still think about it. I'm like, fuck, I miss it. I want to go back.
Yeah.
That was, it was a hell of an experience.
So what did you experience in there that when it was time to come back, you wanted to cling back to that experience? What was it?
I was free. Felt like I didn't have any pain. Felt like I didn't have any duties to uphold. I didn't have responsibilities. It's like I was just floating in limbo, And it was like just an escape from life. Like I just didn't want to do anything anymore. I just wanted to float in space and time and not have to worry about the shit that I have to worry about all the time. I was going through a lot. Still going through a lot. But that one really broke me. Maybe fixed me too. It's hard to say. Because I'm glad to be back. But don't get me wrong. It's like I wish I could go back and experience that again. But that's one thing I got to remember too, is like not every experience is going to be the same. Every time I suspend, it's not going to be some magical, euphoric experience, Sometimes it's just, I just need a hook pull. And
sometimes you've had nothing but pain. Sometimes you've had tears. Sometimes sometimes your suspension's been cut short because you ripped. So it's not everything's going to be
exactly
what you hoped it would be.
That's why when I always go into a suspension, not really confident, not really having, planned out or like, I'm just ready to go. Like, no, I'm just going to see what happens and see how it goes. And that's just life right there. You have to go in that position, in that type of format, because if you have expectation, then not everything's going to go to your expectations all the time.
Right.
And interestingly enough, that Lotus suspension was something very different. But it was a release. It was something that I needed. And that's what draws me back the most every time. Because at one point, it was just a challenge of body and mind. I was practicing meditation beforehand, every suspension. But now I just got past it, and I'm like, let's go. I just drove 2.5 hours. All right.
Hook me up.
Hook me up. Put hooks in me in 15 minutes. Let's go.
Yep.
I did that in my last suspension, actually. It was in North Hollywood. And the GPS was like, hour 45. And I hit so much traffic, it took me 2.5 hours.
Oh.
I was like, I'll just be like 20 minutes late. I was like an hour late. I was like, great. And I'm supposed to be the first person going up.
Oh, man.
They're like, all right, you're here. Let's go. I'm like, let's go. I'm like, I didn't question it. And I'd say, hey, give me some time. I'm like, nah, let's do this.
Yep.
I came here to do this. Let's get it done, regardless of how long it took me.
Yeah.
Get it done.
So sometimes you're preparing ahead of time. Sometimes you just gotta be thrown right into it and accept like, hey, I have no time to prep. I just gotta get to work.
Yep.
Do you think that the anniversary one with the Lotus, do you think that allowed you to touch being nothing but present? And that's maybe why it was such a difficult thing to let go of, is because it was the first time you've experienced actual presence in the moment instead of, living in the past or tripping on the future. You were just there and being, and it was so freeing and beautiful and light that, and is maybe that's why it was the experience was so profound.
I 100% agree.
Yeah.
I agree totally. That's exactly it. I never really thought about it that way. But yeah, it's where I was actually just present in the moment. I was just existing. Not worried about the past, not worried about the future. I was just there. It was, but oddly enough, it was I guess it's kind of going back into my comforts where I'm going back into the box. Because when I'm in the box, I'm alone. And even though I was surrounded by many people, I felt like I was alone. And I was just free. It was...
But it's like, was it like a different aloneness though?
Yeah.
It was like...
Wasn't like I'm just in my room, like nobody's home. Like, no, it's just like there is absolutely no other life around me right now.
Was that comforting, or or did that create fear? Did it create lightness and joy? If you're able to kind of put yourself back in that moment, that feeling of aloneness, was it isolation? Was it comforting?
It was...
Or did it scare the shit out of you?
No, it got me excited, and it wasn't really like isolation. It felt more like I was out in space and just open and by myself. And that's mostly how it felt. It was just being just open and free and very much present. It did bring a lot of light and joy, because I was feeling just there in the moment, that it was beautiful and it was amazing.
Yeah.
And that's probably why it was so hard to come back.
I can imagine. Yeah.
Because I was like, I'm back on Earth.
Yeah.
I'm like, all right, I got to work tomorrow.
Yeah. Yeah. And so that's interesting. It's because I think a lot of times people from the outside will look at things like that, look at suspending, look at utilizing plant medicines, whatever other substances people want. And I think a lot of times people will assume that you're trying to escape reality. But because that was always my upbringing. That was my, we're products of the DARE program. Remember that in school?
I remember that.
But through my experiences with mushrooms, cannabis, and those types of things, I have found them to be tools that can be used that helps you navigate through your bullshit to get to reality. Yes, people are going to abuse them. You know, just everything can get abused. Every tool can get used not for the purpose it was created to be used for. 100%. People are going to use cannabis, suspension, mushrooms. They're going to use it to escape. But I also think that they can be valuable tools that will help anchor us in the reality of the situation, not the Truman Show reality we've constructed around us. You know, it helps tear down the walls that are around us that we've painted to look a certain way, that give us the comfort that we can close the lid on and be like, everything's good. And those things help confront us with the reality, whether things are good or bad, and help us see and understand that who we are, where we are, what do we want, what do we need. And it's a tool. For suspension, it started out as something like, oh, that'd be cool to try. You know, it's a bucket list thing. And then you have had varying experiences with suspension. Is that one of those? Is that another tool in your tool bag that you utilize to help anchor you to reality, or what is the purpose that you still utilize it for? Look forward to it. Where does that fit into your journey, your process, your intentionality, your routine, that helps you get to whatever those goals and results are? Where does suspension fit into that, or does it?
It used to fit into it a lot. One of my first moments where I was like actually getting deep into meditation, and I would concentrate just mostly on rhythm, or sometimes just the sound of silence. And
Not the disturbed version.
no, no. But I would use that, and I was like, okay, like let's concentrate, clear your mind, go through that. And I got to the point where I guess I became more confident in it. And now I could just dive in. Interestingly, it reminds me of a friend used to say, don't be afraid to tread deeper into the murky waters. Because, I mean, and that probably was when I would try to meditate or try to clear my mind. It was basically me trying to prepare myself because I wasn't really ready. I wasn't really, confident in what I was going to do.
Was that an attempt to still control the experience?
I think so, yes.
Yeah.
Because I was trying to go into it thinking, all right, let's just do this, but not try to struggle with it. Just have a clear mind. But it was later on, until like after these past couple of years, I haven't had the need to actually dive deep into it. Had to, sit and touch grass for a moment of time. I broke through the wall that I should be able to do this comfortably, confidently, and should be fine. And I guess maybe that it put a programming into me too. Like that's how I've been going into certain things, like continue my career, change a job, continue to like basically just, living the American dream, being in debt, and and just continuing like, all right, I got to pay this off. I got to figure this out. And sometimes sitting in silence is not the time that I have. And I need to just go at it and just keep moving forward, and maybe find a new chaotic meditation that I can actually work through. And that's actually my, I guess, running and going to the gym is my chaotic meditation, because it's the only time that I'm never really on my phone, despite opposed to like, listen to music.
Right.
But never, scrolling. I'm not thinking about anything. I'm not thinking about bills. I'm not thinking about anybody else but me pushing my muscles, getting the movements in, pushing myself. Let's get that extra mile. Let's do 4 more miles. Screw it. Do 11 miles today. Let's go. It's just that is actually my escape that I've found. And it's opened up a lot of things because it helps me out because I mean, yeah, sure, rest is important, but I feel like when you're asleep, you're asleep. You're not actually processing what you need to do. So even though, yes, it is kind of an escape to run or exercise, but at the same time, you're recharging. You're doing a real recharge opposed to sleep. Because when I'm asleep, I hate sleeping. If I couldn't sleep, I'd be amazing. I could just continue living my life. But when I'm asleep, I feel like it's just, I'm not thinking straight.
Right.
Because you're not. You're just resting.
Yeah. It's what your body needs, but it's not what your mind and soul needs.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so that's probably why my sleep schedule is so screwed up.
Yeah.
But I'm more pushing for what my mind and body needs. Mind and soul, actually. And then my body, it's like, well, all right, then I got to adapt. I got injuries now.
Yep.
So now I got to figure those out. But, let them heal, adapt, and figure it out. And then eventually I'll get some sleep.
Yep. Yeah, dude. I love that thought of chaotic meditation. Because I think so often we like to think of meditation as stillness.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing that's a challenge for me right now is stillness and silence. That's the challenge for me. And that's where I'm trying to lean into because it is so difficult for me. Chaos is easy for me.
Yeah.
But being meditative in that chaos, I'm not there yet. I cannot function calmly and clearly in chaos unless I either prep before it or decompress after it. Otherwise, it's a shit show.
Yeah.
And so I love that idea of trying to aim for being able to meditate in chaos. That's a good goal and a good thing for me to try to look at.
It's good, but also I've found that I can't find peace and stillness and silence anymore. I've noticed that I've become like, I don't know, maybe I'm not really an audiophile, but like maybe the type of person who would portray an audiophile. Like anytime like I'm trying to do some like work, whether I'm eating or simply eating, like I need to be listening to something, or whether it be music or a podcast or something like that. Because sometimes just even like when I'm listening to music, I'm not entirely in my thoughts, but I'm still thinking.
Right.
But for some reason, it's like I lose concentration, and if it's too quiet, it's too quiet.
Yeah.
And maybe that's the next step is now I got to find comfort and stillness now because I'm very comfortable in chaos. But then again, I've probably been comfortable in chaos my whole life, just never realized it. And now just trying to find that actual silence and stillness. That's the next struggle.
Dude, we gave each other some homework.
Yeah.
You're pushing me to try to be comfortable in and comfortable with chaos, and you're realizing, hey, maybe I need to be comfortable with silence. We need to push ourselves to be comfortable being uncomfortable.
Exactly so.
Awesome, dude.
It's going back to what sucks. You got to do it.
Learn to love it.
Yeah, learn to love it because then it'll be the best thing for you.
That's awesome. Dude, that's great stuff, man. I think it's a great place to end this conversation. Thanks so much for your willingness to hang out, chat, be
course.
open on a level that
thanks for having me.
That we haven't been able to explore yet. Dude, I've learned a lot, not just about you, but you've helped me kind of process my own internal shit as well. And you've given me some stuff to kind of chew on, look at, aim for.
Same.
So thanks, dude.
Yeah.
Appreciate
thank you,
you, buddy.
Appreciate you.